Yeah, I need those. These can all get thrown. Okay, thanks. I'm going to try the introduction a second time and see if I can read it. I do it a couple times a year, and yeah, I am a little nervous in the beginning, but basically, you get what happens when you were asked questions. You get so that you're concentrating on what you're doing, and the rest of it doesn't matter. And I never watch myself on television.
I can never quite
every
tell.
time I do, I find all my wrinkles.
Otherwise, you're really short, aren't you?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Good idea.
No, I don't do that.
Everybody got their phone silent.
I do.
I got mine off.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
I never can get it quiet. Always the
Yeah, I'll just
email or
put
something
it here.
else.
Thank you.
I don't know where that noise
These
comes
are
from.
on.
Is this a
These are
question or?
Oh, good. All right.
We have to remind ourselves before and after. Just break into conversations so we forget it. It's been 9 years. I still don't. I don't think about it. That we're being.
Right.
So you have to be a little careful sometimes. Especially that one.
Okay, are we ready? No? Okay. Oh, sure. I did, because I did one in Oregon a few years ago. The first thing I did when I got on, was knock water all over the time. relaxed, everybody. Okay. Welcome to the School Board Candidates Forum for the McFarland School District. Can you hear us back? Can you hear me back there okay? Okay. The candidates running for school board are Arlyn Halverson, Christine Pribbenow, is that how? Okay. And Craig Howery. Pronounced right?
Perfect.
Thank you. My name is Diane Martin-Liebert, and I'll be moderating the forum today. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Dane County, and on behalf of the League, we are happy to help be part of the McFarland Forums once again this year. I would also like to add that the forum is being sponsored by the McFarland Communications and Technology Department, which includes McFarland Cable. This forum provides an opportunity for candidates to further their campaign, answer audience questions, as well as help citizens make their choices for the spring election. The election this year is on Tuesday, April 2nd. Polls will be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. here at the McFarland Municipal Center. If you'd like to vote absentee, you have an option to do so until March 29th. For further information on voting, please visit myvote.wi.gov. Before we get started, I will explain the format of today's forum. Today's forum will consist of the candidates answering individually. One candidate will remain here, while the other candidates will be sequestered in another room. Both candidates, or all of the candidates, will be asked the same questions. During that time, the sequestered candidates will not be able to see or hear what is happening in this room. Once the time is up for the first question, the candidates will transition, and I will choose the second candidate from my jar of candidates here. The candidates have provided some information that Stephanie will share before we start with their questions. Each candidate will have approximately 15 minutes to answer a variety of questions. They will begin with an open statement and have a maximum of 2 minutes to answer each of the questions. Following the opening statement, I'll begin to ask the questions. As you can see, I have a monitor in front of me with the time. The candidates also have a monitor so they can see what time it is and how long it's taking. If anybody in the audience has a question for any of the candidates, there are note cards around your chairs and pencils. Please write them on there and just bring them up over to the table here. When we're done with the written questions, all of the candidates will be invited to come in, and then they can answer the questions that you have written on your cards. And with this, Okay. Craig, you are our first candidate. Do you want me to take the second one too? Sure. All righty. Christine, you are our second question. So you are last.
I'm first.
First. Oh, whatever.
It's all right.
I really can't see your names.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Miller. For those of you who are just starting to join us, I'm the Director for the Communications Technology Department. We really appreciate all of you coming to watch our forums today. Just so you know, unfortunately, the Badgers lost. So not to start with a damper on the forums, but just figured everybody might be curious. With that, though, I will start with an introduction for Craig, who is currently running for school board and has lived in McFarland for 53 years. He is a retired IT consultant and currently serves on the McFarland School Board as vice president. Craig is an alumnus of McFarland High School as well as the Wisconsin School of Electronics, now known as Halverson University, where he received 2 associate's degrees, one in electrical engineering and one in network design. Craig has had 2 children go through the McFarland School District, one who graduated in 2003 and the other in 2004. Now, carrying the tradition of attending the McFarland schools are his 2 grandchildren who are in 1st and 3rd grade. Craig has been a participant in many community activities. He has been a part of the McFarland High School Organized Boosters, the McFarland Education Foundation, the Wisconsin Virtual Academy Board of Directors, the Ad Hoc Committee of the McFarland Senior Center Development, and the McFarland Lions Club. He currently participates as a Board of Directors member for the McFarland Youth Center, as well as mentoring at-risk students in 3rd and 4th grade. Craig has been a part of the McFarland School Board for 3 terms. He began his school board career working through extremely difficult and delicate issues brought on by the passage and implementation of Act 10. As a retiree, Craig feels that gives him an opportunity to be an active and engaged board member, particularly in properly preparing for board and associated meetings, as well as attending network events such as at the state and national level. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
Okay, Craig, you want to begin with your opening statement? You
Sure.
have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Diane. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. I'd also like to thank the Village Communications and Technology Committee and the Dane County League of Women Voters for facilitating the event. Excuse me. As Stephanie said, I've been around McFarland for a long, long time. I see a lot of familiar faces out there, but yet a lot that I haven't had the opportunity to meet. I guess by way of an opening statement, I do consider my experience and longevity here in the village and in the district as a prime motivating factor for wishing to continue my service on the school board. People ask what I think of the school board because I think, generally speaking, folks feel like it's a thankless, difficult task that a lot of people like to worry about and complain about, but don't really like to participate. And I think it's wonderful to see someone from the community came out and has chosen to run for the school board. The last 2 or 3 terms, our incumbents are running unopposed. For that time, I preferred to think it was because everyone thought the school board was, doing such a good job they didn't need anybody else. And part of me agrees with that. A school board is a lot like a team, and a team can't function smoothly, can't function in the way that they'd choose without chemistry. And this board has great chemistry. We work through issues, big and small. We make sure that we gain consensus before we do anything. And we believe in planning.
Thank you. Okay, next question. What do you think the district is doing exceptionally well, and what are your priorities for the district?
I am a firm believer that the school district plays a very important part in bringing folks to our wonderful community. McFarland is a village that has great people in it. It's got a lot of smart people, very generous people. I think the school board and the school district does a great job, but there's always room for improvement. We're constantly looking for ways to close achievement gaps and to improve the achievement levels of our students, who, by the way, do very well in all the state testing. Generally speaking, within the 15 or 16 districts in our area, we're either second or third. And it's been that way for quite some time. We have several initiatives going on right now. One of them, as I'm sure everybody knows, with all the construction vehicles around, is to see the facilities upgrade improvement or the referendum projects. I'd love to see those through to completion. We're also looking at our schedule. At a point a couple of years ago, we changed our schedule from the block to the AB, which is very different, but it allows the students, I think, a better opportunity. We're looking at both standards-based grading and this schedule change with an eye toward improved student achievement. Now, the standards-based grading is something we started a couple of years ago, and it's probably going to take another couple of years to bring through to fruition. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Where do you see budget priorities?
The budget is always a priority. And what we've attempted to do throughout this referendum process is weigh what's good for the kids against what the community can afford. So we spent many, many hours and days pre-referendum planning on what we can get as opposed to what we can afford. It's the what do I want as opposed to what do I need. And I think we've done a great job in terms of facilities. We're going to have facilities that are second to none. We're putting in a new performing arts center that will open next fall, a new pool, and I believe they're going to switch the pools out the first part of April. We're going to put a second floor on the high school because of the great success of our tech ed department. We need to expand that. And we're also just starting to do a climate or environmental study throughout the entire school district. By this, I mean we're going to put a survey. We have a survey put together. Actually, the date for replying to the surveys is this Monday. To this point, we've had 65% response, response, which is really pretty good. What we're looking to do in a completely anonymous way, we're going to survey all the staff, including support, administrative support, and administration, to see if there are things we can do better in terms of environment, because our task is to provide a safe, welcoming, warm environment to our students.
Okay, thank you. Next question. How do you feel about the grading, the current grading practices, and what changes, if any, would you like to see implemented?
Standards-based grading is something we started a little over 2 years ago. It's very different than what we've become used to with the A, B, C, D, F grading system. What standards-based grading attempts is to get away from students memorizing facts and figures and regurgitating those on tests. What standards-based grading does, there's a difference between memorization and learning. Standards-based grading accentuates the learning part of it rather than the memorization part of it. It's very difficult. We need buy-in, 100% buy-in from all the staff and administration in order for this to be successful. Based on conversations that I've had at both state and national events, a large majority of school districts currently use standards-based grading. Our district was actually a little slow to try to implement this. I suspect in a year or two, all the wrinkles will be smoothed out, and I really truly believe that you will see an improvement in student achievement at McFarland. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. How do you plan to make sure administration is supporting the mission statements of the district?
I think that's something that we constantly work on and talk about. We hire administrators with an eye toward independent leaders. However, the leaders need to understand what McFarland is all about and how unique we are as a school district. Another thing that I find traveling around to the state and national conventions is what a unique school district McFarland is. The relationship between the school board and the administration, the school board and the staff, has never really been acrimonious. It's always an attitude of, we're all in this together. We're one great big team, and let's keep it that way. Most school districts I've found are just the opposite of that. There's a very confrontational relationship between the school boards and the staff. They go into, I won't say negotiations, because you really can't have negotiations anymore. You can have discussions. And what we've done in the past, and I think we've done very well, is that we have hired administrators that understand the McFarland way and are willing to make any changes to their methods and style that need be in order to fit into the McFarland family. And we do consider ourselves a family. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Students come in all shapes and sizes, including those who face learning disabilities, those battling any mental health issues, students who find themselves a part of the LGBT community, or those who are minority students. How will you make sure that McFarland Schools support all of the students?
Firstly, I believe the McFarland School District does an excellent job. They're very inclusive, very tolerant, very understanding. However, I think even though our student enrollment it's not a real diverse student population. Ideally, all students should see themselves reflected in the staff at the school. Currently, we don't have the appropriate number of people of color, LGBT folks. We don't have an amount commensurate with the number of students that we have. So what we are planning to do in terms of diversity is actively recruit candidates of color, candidates from the LGBTQ community. It's difficult. It's difficult because there are very few candidates of color in the candidate pool for teaching positions. So what we're going to try to do as a district, we're trying to develop a program called Grow Your Own. And by that we mean we take employees of color in jobs that are unlicensed teaching positions and see if we can work with them to get them on a track to acquire teaching licenses, which would give them the inside track to a position in the McFarland School District. We're also going to work with the Urban League and any other organizations that can help us actively recruit candidates of color.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What are your short-term and long-term goals for the district?
Short term, I would say, is to finish up the referendum project. Everything is on time. We're a bit under budget, knock on wood, but I would like to see the facilities project through to fruition, just as it is today, on time and at least on budget. I think we're on track to do that. The other extremely important issue is to get through this climate survey so that we know we're providing an environment, an ideal environment in terms of what the teaching staff, support staff, and administration is looking for by way of improving what is already a great district. We continue to look at standards-based grading, and the schedule change that we made from the block to the AB schedule appears to be working well. It was difficult the first couple of years simply because it was a big change. What we've tried to do is accentuate teaching to learn rather than teach to the test. I think a lot of districts tend to teach to the test, resulting in excellent results in the state standard tests, but not necessarily what they take out of the high school environment into the post-high school environment. We think we need to find less memorization and more learning. And we're hoping standards-based grading will do that for us.
Okay. Well, you may now end with your closing statement.
Okay. First of all, every election year that I'm up for re-election, I ask myself some questions. Do I get tired of the meeting prep? And there is a considerable amount of preparation that goes into school board meetings and associated committee meetings. Have I stopped looking forward to attending the committee meetings, work sessions, et cetera, all over and above the standard meetings? No, I've never stopped looking forward to them. Do I not feel like going to the big networking events, the state convention, the national convention? These are the places where I get an opportunity to network with my peers from not only across the state, but across the country. Again, that's where I find out we have such a unique school district. Do I grow tired of attending extracurricular events at the school? Any of you that have spent significant time at the school has probably seen me there. And that goes clear back to the 80s. I have been a presence in the school literally since I graduated in 1971. I have no desire to leave. I've got two real passions in life. One is my family, and the other is the village of McFarland in general, but the school district specifically. I'm passionate about it. When people ask me about the school board, I say I will be on this, excuse me, on the school board until the people of the village tell me I can't. I enjoy it that much. I'd also like to thank my wife Sharon for allowing me to do this. It does impact the family. It really, really does. And I'd like to thank the community for allowing me the honor of being on the school board in McFarland. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Now we transition to Christine.
How we doing? Good? Staying awake. Thank you. So we have Christine Pribbenow here, who, as you know, is running for village school board, or school board in the village. And she has lived in the district for 18 years. She is currently an educational researcher and scientist for the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Christine has an educational background with a Bachelor of Science in Psychology and Sociology from Carroll College, a Master of Science Education and Counselor Education from Northern Illinois University, and she also has a PhD in Educational Leadership and Policy Analysis from UW-Madison. Currently, Christine has two children attending McFarland Schools, one an 8th grader and the other is a junior. Her third child graduated from McFarland High School in 2017. If elected, this would be Christine's first term on the McFarland School Board, but she's been involved in many other community activities and boards, such as the Superintendent's Equity Roundtable for the McFarland School District, McFarland Boys Basketball Association, and Child Life Ministries for the McFarland Lutheran Church. She implemented the Meet and Eat free month meal program, was the founder and facilitator of the New Perspectives book group, and volunteers through the McFarland Family Festival and Evaluation Counseling for community initiatives. Christine believes that both her professional background and personal experiences have prepared her for the role of a school board member. She studies and evaluates K-12 and post-secondary education policies, initiatives, and interventions. She is accountable for small and large-scale grants and budgets ranging from $2,000 to $1.5 million in her current role as a scientist. Christine is invested in this community through ongoing community service, which allows her to develop relationships throughout the village and the McFarland School District. Welcome, Christine. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, Christine, you can start with your opening statement.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for being here, both physically and on cable. I want to thank Diane Liebert for facilitating this from the League of Women Voters of Dane County, and Stephanie Miller and the WMCF staff and the technology group. Thank you so much. There really are, thank you, Stephanie, for sharing that about me. There are 3 values that I would bring to the board. I'd like to share those with you. First of all, I believe that there needs to be transparency and communication. I believe that the parents and the community members are equally important in the role in the school district to giving us guidance and feedback. But most importantly, we are also accountable to the staff, the educators and staff, and the students. And I hope to be clear about what kind of things are happening on the board and to open it up to people to come and to do public comments. The second value that I hold is that schools need to be the best learning environment for all children. And they need to be a good climate, they need to have strong curriculum, they need to have areas in which people can grow socially, emotionally, as well as academically. But I also believe that the schools are work environments for our educators, and that we need to have a positive climate for them in hiring and recruiting and making sure that we retain the best educators. As I mentioned, or I'm sorry, Stephanie mentioned 3 children. We've had a wonderful experience in the school district. I think we can do things differently in some areas. I think we can be better in some areas. And I really just want to contribute to making the school district the best it can be.
Thank you. Okay, first question. What do you think the district is doing exceptionally well, and what are your priorities for the district?
Let's see, I think the district is doing a number of things exceptionally well. I think that the new buildings, the referendum that has allowed for new buildings to be built was a very positive thing for the school district and educators, for the students. So I think that is a very positive thing. I think one thing that we could do better with that, however, is making sure that we recognize that those funds came from taxpayers, and how are we going to make sure that our policies and our use of the beautiful facilities are open to people outside of the school district who might want to use some of the venues. I think that we could do that better. Another area that I'd like to focus on is the community and village relationships. I think it would be, we're such a small community, our village is small, and to have the best working relationship between the village and of course we'll be having this president vote on April 2nd as well. So how are we able to work well with them? How can we leverage funds such that something that the village might want to do, we could work together with it as the district and work together with that as well. And then finally, another priority that I would have would be, and I mentioned this earlier, focusing on the climate for educators. We've lost a few administrators recently, and I think there's been some flux in that, and I think the district might want to look at their hiring policies and retention issues. I would love to implement climate assessment for the educators, and then exit surveys for people to know why they're leaving the district, to know what we can do to make it better for everybody who is working there.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Where do you see budget priorities?
Where do I see budget priorities? Boy, that's a big question. So if I look at the district budget itself, I think, what in my experience so I've done a lot of homework. I've attended a number of board meetings. I watched them. They're always taped, so I go in there and I watch different board meetings to get up to speed with what's happening. I think that our priorities once again, I'm going to push on the idea of the educators because we are starting with the changes with Act 10 and so on. We do see that there is not the salary parity that there should be for educators. So I would like to look at that as one of the priorities. Another area of priority for our budget is not asking for more money. So right now with the referendum being in its final year in 2019, 2020, our tax dollars are already going towards the district. I would like for us to look at other sources of funding. There is a lot of money available to us in forms of grants, in forms of foundations and trusts. Many people looking to fund educational initiatives that are out there and that we could apply for and get. And I think that if we don't look at it as pulling from the budget that we have, but rather these are new monies that we can try different interventions or different programmings, I think that would be a great way to keep the budget where it is now. I don't think we've taken advantage of any of those monies. Stephanie had mentioned that I do some consulting, and there's a community nonprofit who just needed a little help with grant writing, and we wrote 2 grants, and she got $70,000. It took us an hour or two just to write those up. So I think if we sought other ways to fill in some of the gaps, that would be one of the priorities to look at.
Okay, thank you. How do you feel about the grading, the current grading practices, and what changes, if any, would you like to see implemented?
That is clearly a big debate right now. There are a number of places where that's happening. I had done a survey when I started thinking about running for the board to get a feel for what was on people's minds and what were their priorities. And clearly the standards-based grading at the high school was one of those priorities that certainly rose to the top. Since then, I've come to understand that it's higher for a lot of people. It's clearly an issue for some. I think the question was, what changes would I like to make? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I don't feel like I would want to say this is what needs to be changed without looking at some data and evaluating how it's being implemented right now. So as a new practice using the standards-based grading, there's always the ideal of a policy and how it's actually implemented. And I think the ideal was that it would be a more accurate assessment of student learning, and that's standards-based or competency-based is one way to do that. But how it's actually being implemented and felt, both through the education side and the teachers and the grading, aligning it with the A through F grades, there appears to be a little bit of a misalignment there, and then how the students feel about it as well. So my recommendation on the board would be to say, let's fully evaluate what's happening and figure out where we're having the issues. There's really 3 choices. Keep it as it is, look and find out what's going wrong, and then fix it or get rid of it. And I think the one in the middle is to figure out what is going wrong and then put our efforts on that would be the best way to approach it now. So that would be what I would highly recommend.
Okay, thank you. How do you plan to make sure administration is supporting the mission statements of the district?
That's a really good question. So I think, our mission statement is to provide a safe and learning environment for our students. It's to allow for, students to grow academically, socially, emotionally, as I mentioned. The other piece of our mission statement is that we are treating children equitably and equally. So I think that we do some of our mission statement quite well, but there are areas where we could be better. And I think it's in that equity and equally piece, because that is part of our mission, is to make sure that all of our students have the best school experience they can. And the reason why that's important is because if they don't, they're not learning. If they're distracted from bullying or being subjected to some other negative impact within the schools, they're not going to be present and able to learn. So how would I address the mission? I think as a board member, I would call out those instances that we hear whether it's something that comes to us in the board, where we're able to say, this is an example, we're not living out our mission, we're not doing the best thing we can for this child, how are we going to address that? I think a mission statement is wonderful, because it can hold you accountable if it's used correctly. So that's a great question, and I think it's our responsibility. Even though I have 3 children, I don't represent my 3 children. I represent everyone's children on the board, and that's how I would go into it as, this is our child in our village. What are we going to do to make it better?
Okay, next question. Students come in all shapes and sizes, including those who face learning disabilities, those battling any mental health issues, students who find themselves a part of the LGBT community, or those who are minority students. How will you make sure McFarland Schools support all of the students?
I know that the school district's goal is to support all of the students. I would ask us to look at the data to identify if we're really doing that. I think we have a great reputation. People move here because of the school district. But even from my survey, which was completely anonymous, I have no idea who actually responded, but some people would say we've had an awful experience here. So there are places where we could do better. When it comes to students who, you mentioned a whole host with different needs, I think we need to look at the data. So are we finding that, for example, our students of color are having differential experiences, and we're seeing in the data some differential impact? Are we seeing that by gender? Truly, if we're to be equally supportive of all of our kids in any kind of place where there's a representation of kids, we should see it being proportionate. So for example, if you have an award ceremony, you should have equal girls and equal boys. Do we have that? So I would say look at the data. I think things like mental health issues, I know from listening to the board and the meetings and so on, that is a concern, because we're seeing, not that we're seeing more and more of it, but it's being identified earlier, and we need to address it, and we need to accommodate it. Mental illness should be treated equally like a physical disability. And so any accommodations that we're doing for physical, we need to be thinking about what are the accommodations we need to be doing for people who may suffer from anxiety or panic attacks or something like that. So each of those different groups would have different issues, but I think we start with the data, let the data talk to us.
Okay, thank you. What are your short-term and long-term goals for the district?
Well, my short-term goal is to get on the board. And if for some reason that doesn't happen, my short-term goal will be to stay in the district with my children. My short-term and long-term, well, first of all, I want to get on the board. And I'm learning. I have an open mind. I'm always reading things. Luckily, due to my profession, I get to go out to different conferences. And just recently, about 2 weeks ago, I sat and listened to the CEO of PBS talk to Dr. Gates about a new documentary that was coming up on PBS and all the teachers' curriculum that were coming. 2 days later, I was at a different conference talking about how to get women into STEM fields at the middle school level, and had all this great data and research that showed how it worked. And so to get back to your question, short-term and long-term, I want to get on the board and learn. I know that my 2 wonderful candidates, and thank them both for their service, have a lot of experience being on the board. I don't have that experience. I want to learn what it's like to be on the board. I want to know what people are grappling with. So I think at the beginning, I'm just going to soak it all in and learn. Like I said, I've been to meetings and I've watched a ton of them, so I know that everyone brings a different piece. Mr. Mooney brings this wonderful long history of being a principal, and And then both Ms. Molitor and Mr. Allen are both lawyers, so they bring that piece. We have, 3 potential people. I would bring the current and relevant education piece, and I think I want to figure out how do we work as a team, because we're not individual board members. We really are a board that needs to function like this. So my short-term goal is to figure it out. My long-term goal is many of what I mentioned earlier about being transparent and so on.
Okay. Well, now you can end with your closing statement.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'd love to do this job. I do feel like it's a job. I feel like I am applying for the job of being a school board member, that I put out my resume, and you know my academic background, you know my personal background, and this is kind of an interview for me. And so I want to ask you, who do you think is the best candidate, and that will, of course, be represented in your vote. What do I bring? What do I bring to the table that I want to be so much a part of? I bring this researcher evaluator mindset, and even though I do that, even though that's a core piece of me, I really draw from other people. Tell me about this, give me data about this, let me learn from you about what you know. I have access to, once again, state, national information about education. I've lived here, I've lived in California, I've lived in Illinois, so I have a number of places that I draw from, and I'm always out in different districts and at different colleges. And you'll see if you know my kids, they have everything from Harvard to Boston College. I mean, I always bring them a shirt back, the mindset. I'm a parent and a community member. I get the emails. I talk about schools when I'm sitting on the bench or in the stands or in the audience. And then once again, I said, I don't feel like I'm representing my kids. My kids are on their way out. I really do want to represent the kids that are coming up behind us. So I do feel like I bring that perspective to the board. And currently, one of the 5 has kids in the district. I think it's important to have kids in the district, at least from a couple of the board members. And I work really well on a team. You mentioned the research projects. None of those are me alone. I work really well as a group. I have a fresh and current perspective that I hope I can ask some new questions. So I hope that you hire me, at least for 3 years, vote for me. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we have Arlyn Halverson here, running for school board. He has lived in the McFarland School District his entire life. Currently, he is a farmer and a Dane County highway worker. Additionally, he currently serves on the McFarland School Board as the school board president. Arlyn is an alum of McFarland High School and has 4 children who have also graduated from the McFarland Schools. Arlyn has participated on the McFarland School to Career Committee for 27 years and is also a Sunday school teacher at the McFarland Lutheran Church. He has been a member of the McFarland School Board for 24 years, as well as served the MATC Board of Trustees for 8 years. As mentioned, Arlyn has lived in the McFarland School District his entire life. Not only has he been involved in the district through the board, but he has also been a custodian bus driver for a number of years in the district as well. Arlyn believes it is most important to do what's best for kids and to be fiscally responsible. Welcome, Arlyn.
Thank you. I was in at the Sunday school a long time ago, not lately.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Just want you to know.
Okay. Okay, Arlyn, you can begin with your opening statement. You have 2 minutes.
All right. Well, thank you for coming. I'm a hometown boy. Most of you know that. And I come from a family. My brother, oldest brother, he went to Oregon. He didn't have a high school here. When I went into kindergarten, they were building a high school. And so my brother, next one, Byron in between, he graduated in 67 and I'm 74. When I was in kindergarten, I have a yearbook that we were K-8 and it was McFarland Cardinals. I have that still. but I've been on the school board. I got involved with the school back in, got back to school. I graduated in 74, and I come back as a night custodian in the mid-'80s during the farm crisis. And it was 5 wonderful years. I enjoyed that. I got to be around the kids. I got to see what the teachers that I grew up with, what they had to go through. I was involved in their rooms, cleaned it, and I always enjoyed that because I could see a lot what happens in the rooms, and I learned from that. Got to know the teachers from a different side, and how the staff works, and how a school board works. And that was good. I left that, I started milking cows, and I began driving school bus, and I did that for 5 years. And to be honest with you, that's the best job I ever had. And those kids was a part of my family. And it was just wonderful. So I got on the school board. I was driving school bus, and I took a job with Dane County Highway on Monday, and I got elected on the school board on Tuesday. So I imagine stay with the kids for a long time. But I've got to see both sides of the hall, as you want to say, and how it all works. And so I got involved in the school district and the school board, and it means a lot. And I know what it is for people to work together, and I know what's best for kids and how we all can get there. And I have to also have to say, you have to look the retired people and single people that don't have kids in the eye when you have to talk to them about money and tell them the value of what the school district is. It's for all of us. That's what I have.
Thank you. What do you think the district is doing exceptionally well, and what are your priorities for the district?
Well, I think that over time, I think our district does well on just the education. First off, at one time, all 4 buildings were islands, and they were their own departments. And we become a K-12 and tied them all, broke the barriers down, and put it all together. We become data-driven, which is a very good thing, because I remember when I was a custodian and kids would come back for homecoming and they would talk about different levels of how they could handle school and what their challenges were. I could see that even though we had a lot of kids on honor roll, a lot of them wasn't succeeding on the school that they were going afterwards. And so when we went to the testing, we found out where we were at and it compared apples to apples. And so we know where we're at, so we can make better decisions. When you make a decision, you check it to make sure it's working afterwards, not just walk away and let it go. Education is always changing, and it's sure not what I went with, but you learned how to keep up with it and to challenge the kids, to deal with the social issues, to deal with everything. But what the bottom line is, we have to find and give the kids rhyme to reason of what they learn and a direction that they would like to go to, and exposure and what excites them for their future is what we need to line up, and we do fairly well on that. I'm pretty proud of that, and I think then they have a desire and they are more successful in life because you're doing a job that you like. And your job is not just a job, it becomes your life. And so we want people to be successful. And we have to communicate that back to the public and continually work in a changing world all the time and evolve with the kids and the world. So I guess that's my biggest challenge, just to stay up to what.
Okay, thank you. What do you see as budget priorities?
Everything is budget priority. And when you make a commitment to people, we try to be very fiscally responsible. And there is no easy money. And it's return on investment. If we do this, we're doing this, and we're going to see results from this. And we have to share that also. People work very hard. People are very good in McFarland. Our schools are the reason they're good, because the people care about their schools and they support them, but you can't take advantage of that. And so fiscally, we have to make good business decisions, and when we make a decision, we have to check it to make sure it's making a difference, not do it and then just walk away. So I look at that. I look also, we did pick up this and work with the virtual school, which we, Kathy Sigmund and I went and looked at it before we even decided to go go to that. We went to Lake Mills, actually. They were the district that had it, and seen a lot of opportunity there. And that is something that gives us credit, and financially it's good for us. And it's an avenue for kids that if they need something special, we have an access to a virtual school for classes if somebody gets sick, to catch up, to do whatever it has to be done. Or if a kid wants to just take virtual school, that's free in McFarland. And just be careful, I guess.
Okay, thank you. How do you feel about the current grading practices, and what changes, if any, would you like to see implemented?
In grading practices
In the grading practices, yes.
all buildings or just one?
It just is the current grading practices.
Okay, it seems like the biggest topic we have on that right now would be at the high school. And like anything else, we look at it and we're reviewing it. And we'll have to see. There's two things that happened at the high school with the grading system. We changed from the 4 90-minute sessions with some skinnies that we had prior, and we went with a 4-block that went A-B every other day. And Craig Howery and I both went to other districts, looked at it, seen the benefits or what was proposed benefits of it, which we're checking that out too, and got results from that lately. And of that. But what kind of, I think, put a challenge to this grading system that we have, and we're not done investigating it yet. It's still going through a process, and we have a survey out there, and we're communicating best with the staff directly through this survey. And this grading system takes, I think, a lot longer and needs more preparation for people to go into. I think it was quite a draw on the staff, and to tell you the truth, they look tired. They do a good job, they do a complete job, but it just takes a lot out of them. So we're trying to find out if it's at the AB, if it's a grade system, what can we do to either make it better or if we have to change it, and that's a process that we're going through. The rest of schools' grading systems are basically kind of similar to this. It's a different way of looking at grade school, is about kind of like what the high school is doing, but the high school is a bigger animal to tackle it. And so that's where I'm at.
Okay, thank you. How do you plan to make sure administration is supporting the mission statements of the district?
Our mission statement came from a very large committee. It was 40-some people of school staff and community, and that came from, and a lot of people don't know, but that came from when we had a divided opinion about our school district. We had some issues, and so they did very well by putting the two opposites together. I was part of that committee, and that should be a living mission statement. We should be basing our decisions, should have to stand up to that mission statement. A lot of times you see a mission statement, you throw it on the wall, and all it does is collect dust, or it just sits there, nobody notices it. You need to make it real. And that's what we continually do. I talk about that, the mission statement being real, and going back to that, is that has to be part of what drives our district. That's a decision-making process, community-based, for our district. I think it's paid us dividends. It spun this school around. It's a big deal. And it may sound simple, but folks, it put this thing together. It put both sides, took the barriers down, and had a common goal. And that's what's best for kids. And that's what we did.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Students come in all shapes and sizes, including those who face learning disabilities, battling any mental health issues, students who find themselves part of the LGBT community, or those who are minority students. How will you make sure McFarland Schools support all students?
We do that, and it's a challenge. And I have to say, I talk to kids a lot. I go down to whether I'm at the Chinese food place down here at Main Moon, and I talk to the kids that are working down there. I talk to kids all over, and I find out where they're at. And sometimes some of that time, them subjects come up. And I get it right from the kids. But we have to be aware of that. We have to also look at our staffing so that our staff looks and resembles the community that's in our school too. and the board has been working on that. And give some direction to the administration to do some practices that we feel would be best for the district and make it reflect your community. But we're dealing with a live person here. And time changes, and that's what I'm talking about, so society-wise, socially, how things change, and how you deal with them, and how you should deal with them, and teaching what's wrongs and rights, and how to get along and respect one another. And that goes back to families, because you can have your siblings be different and be felt like they're also not included in the family, but you make that bridge and you work it through. That's what we have to do at schools. You never give up on that, and you build from that, because everybody, we're all one group, we're all one family, and it should be school family, it should be home family, but you should be comfortable no matter who you are and how you feel. And mental illness, that is a very big topic that we just have been hitting on, working on, and handling very well this last couple of years, and that has been quite a challenge.
Okay, thank you. What are your short-term and long-term goals for the district?
Short term, we like to button up this referendum, and thank you very much for the support from it. There's a lot of very good things that have happened, and with the building project. And for everybody to support the district like they did, thank you very much. It's going to be quite an asset. I want everybody to come into the building and look at it when we're done too. It's your building. This is the community's building, not just the kids, everybody, and we need to come. Long-term goals, well, one I have that I'm very excited about. On MATC, and I got on MATC board solely because there used to be islands again between the technical schools and the university and the K-12. And so we've been working on these barriers. Our superintendent was on that committee when I was on the school board, Ken Berdingham, and I got on after that. And a lot of things are popping at MATC that are going in a very good direction. And one of the things that we all notice is that when the kids get out of high school, college is very expensive. And what's happening with MATC is going to be happening first off out of Park Street, though. They're going to be taking 200 kids from Madison School District, and their last 2 years are going to be at MATC, and they're going to come out with either associate degree or transferable. That's going to go to all districts. And I want McFarland to be on the front side of that, because we hope to be graduating our kids from high school with either an associate degree or 2 years transferable to UW, all paid for by the tax dollar within our district. And I tell you, that's going to be a big deal. That's something that is going to help a lot of kids and a lot of public. It's a good work at both entities.
Okay, thank you. Now you may end with your closing statement.
School board is my recreation. I feel very good about it. I enjoy kids. I have 4 of them. Got 4 grandkids now, with a 5th one coming here shortly, and it's exciting. I care about the staff. I know that you have to have good teachers, good administration, a board walking in step with the public to have a successful team. We are a successful team. This community is blessed with a very good school system through the support of it. And I know I've been here a long time, but I have a great desire for what's best for kids and keep this community and this ball rolling. I enjoy it. I like to say that we are a board of 5, one of 5. There is nobody any higher, any lower, And that's what makes our school board very good. There's been 5 people that come together all the time. We can disagree, but disagree and come together and move forward, and we do it for the benefit of either the kids, the staff, or the district in general. And I don't care what party you're from, I don't really care. And we've had that on the political party, I should say, and it don't matter at the school board. If our rest of our government worked like we do down here, everything would be a lot better, because you move forward, and we make it a better place. That's my final comment.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're now going to bring the other candidates in and ask some questions from the audience. Does anybody else have any other questions? If not, I'll just ask these. Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. I'm not gonna, there's one that are kind of joint. There's 2 on the grading issue, maybe 6 or 7. Oh. Okay, that's kind of. Here's a double one. So how many questions do you think? Okay. 20 minutes. Yeah, okay. Okay, the way I'm going to do this is each of you get to answer the question. Arlyn, I'm going to start you with the first question, and then Christine, I'll start you with the second, and Craig, I'll start you with the third. And that way we rotate, so you don't all get stuck with the first one is the first question. Okay, the first question is, what is your perspective on expanded language studies, including dual language immersion programs for the McFarland School District? We'll start, Arlyn, with you.
It's all good. It is, and no, that's very good.
Okay.
I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it, and we need to keep working at it, and I think that's a benefit for everyone. That's a pretty easy, yeah, it's a good thing.
Okay, thank you. Christine?
I agree that it would be an excellent thing to add to the district. I think the benefits for it would be not only for the kids who want to participate, but with students who come in with a different language being their first language. They have an opportunity to be successful and also provide a culture within a different language where they could do tutoring and mentoring and so on. So I think it provides a win-win for all of the children involved, plus the ability to learn a language very well because you are immersed. So overall, yeah.
Craig?
Well, I would agree with both. As our district becomes more diverse, I think it's going to become more and more important that we have enhanced English as a second language opportunities for the kids. I don't believe we have full immersion at this point. Like I say, I think as the district becomes more diverse, it's going to behoove us. And like Christine said, it is a win-win. You get kids coming in with little to no English that go home every night to parents that really have no English skills at all. So it just, the school is a difficult place, all things being right. Imagine how difficult school is when not only do you have issues with the language, but you go home and those issues are only addressed away from school because the parents simply do not speak the language.
Okay. Christine, the next question start with, what 3 goals do you believe need accomplishing as soon as possible?
The 3 goals that need accomplishing as soon as possible. One, I think, and based on your question earlier, the standards-based grading, I think figuring out what to do about that concern would be one of the first that I would want to focus on. The second goal would be, for me, it would be looking at attrition of educators and administrators to see what kind of hiring, what kind of hiring processes we have, what kind of issues and retention we have. That would be the second one. And the third one does go back to the referendum and making sure that as the buildings get finished and the community becomes, able to use them, that we're doing a great job working with the village and with taxpayers to make sure it's an open and welcoming environment for all. So those would be the three I'd pick.
Okay, thank you. Craig?
There are multiple initiatives, I guess, that I would consider high priority at this point. One is certainly standards-based grading. I think we will, in all likelihood, end up with a hybrid sort of standards-based grading program. I do believe it's here to stay. I think the emphasis on learning rather than memorizing is important enough to go ahead and fight on through it for at least another couple of years. Conversations I've had with folks that have been doing it for 10 and 12 years, we're tracking exactly where they did in terms of staff buy-in, consistency, student buy-in, and parent buy-in. None of the folks that use it, that have been using it for a long time, achieved that right away. And we're feeling those growing pains right now. So that would be one. I think finishing the facilities upgrades on time and on or under budget is critically important. And this climate survey that's actually taking place right now may very well end up being the most important initiative we have, depending upon the results. We feel like we provide a safe, welcoming, learning environment for our kids right now. Maybe we'll find out that there's some holes in that based on the results of the survey. So I think that's critically important as well. So I would say those three.
Okay, thank you. Arlyn?
I guess we're kind of mirroring a lot of stuff here. The grading system, I know that when I talked to other districts around at the high school, the standard-based, Poynette, they trained for the grading system change for 4 years prior to getting into it. They also, we also dealing with people at home not feeling comfortable with the grade. If we had a letter grade, I know Poynette, and I think we do also now, put the grade and the standard base, it's all together. It's a hurdle, but it's something that's it's also standard-based learning is going to be something that we're going to have to learn to do the grading. And so there's a lot to it. And the one that's making that happen is the staff. And they're the ones that have to work on this. And there's where they're not running away from it, but I think they're just getting gassed because they've been asked to do a lot with an A-B schedule and the grading. So that's what we're kind of working through. Let's see. Now I get golf on one. I got to get. Damn. Give me a second here, if you can. The survey. Yes, that it's a 360-degree survey. It's something that we should be doing continually. And what it is this is going K-12, and then if we see issues at whatever division it is in the district, that will show, and then we can look into that and follow in and maybe do another survey back into to fine-tune where we're at, where there's a hiccup. Now, there's a lot of communication with everybody from the staff and administration to us, but this is one way that cuts that real short, and we can be on the front line of it instead of it going 2 or 3 years later and then finding a bigger problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Craig, you get this one. On the question, we asked a question about tolerance among students with disabilities and mental health issues, et cetera. But bullying was not mentioned in that question. How would you implement, how do you handle bullying?
Bullying is an issue very near and dear to my heart. What we do now, there are several ways for students to report bullying, whether it happened to them, whether they saw it happen. And students are encouraged, if you see something, say something. I'm not so sure there's a way to eliminate bullying. There are always going to be those young people out there who feel like somehow, in order for them to feel good about themselves, they need to see someone else feel bad. And I think, especially at this time, we need to go back to basic decency and kindness. I know that the folks at all of the schools in our district virtually every day somehow talk about inclusion, tolerance, bullying. I won't be happy until it's not there anymore. I don't know if that's feasible, but there really isn't anything that I feel more strongly about than people treating each other with kindness and respect. Thank you.
Thank you. Arlyn?
Bullying has been around forever. Now, the source of that either comes from, it could come from home, it could be from someone at a neighborhood and had exposure to it. It's a host of things. I have, in a work site, I work with a lot of construction men. And some of these guys, and we talk about bullying too, and they don't even know that they're a bully. They never understood it. And they thought that's just the way it is. And so you have to educate. That's our job. We educate down here. And so same thing, it's the same practice. You have to educate and what is right, what is wrong. When it comes back to them, then they understand it, they get it. But sometimes it's bullying, they just don't understand that they're being a bully. And we take kids from a lot of different homes, come from a lot of different areas, a lot of different personalities. And everybody's grew up in a different place, and their parents grew up in a different place with different challenges. And so, you know, some of this is something that community, we have to deal with. And so, yeah, you have to go after that. And you front it now, and you start talking about it, and you break it open, and you get to the person, and you have them understand it. And then we can move forward. Your churches work with it, everybody, the doctors, mental health, everybody's on that. And they should be. But it's real, but you don't run away from it, you run at it. And you fix it. And then you're going to get a real asset out of your people from the results, because that'll cut that short for the next time. Then you move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Christine?
I think all of us are in agreement that we don't want bullying. And I think that a lot of our first thought is usually interpersonal bullying that happens in a classroom. And I think we need to be a little bit more proactive about social media and cyberbullying. And what I've appreciated most about, well, my kids and even some of the networks that I have outside of my children is the awareness of the different apps that kids are using, what's being shared across different places. I would like for us as a board to be a little more proactive in that, in recognizing that there are different forms of bullying. And in the world today, it might not be somebody on the schoolyard pushing someone down or calling someone a name. It might be really subtle. It might be very implicit, and highlighting a sleepover and, you know, tagging someone who wasn't invited or something like that. So I think we need to be looking at what kids are experiencing today as in different forms of bullying, along with the interpersonal, which of course we are all aware of and probably experienced, you know, ourselves. It's not good. None of it's good.
Okay, thank you. Arlyn, you get this question? There's two questions on this, and basically is, how does the village and the school board work together? Are there some problems, and how do you take care of them?
Well, the school district, we are all coming out of the same tax dollar. Bottom line. We all come from the same people. That our village board and school board, I remember the first meeting, and I sat next to Tom Harrison. He was a very good board member down here, a big guy. He grew up here in McFarland, and he see no reason why we can't be working together, and that's what started the whole thing, and that's where it should be, because if $1 is here and it can help this dollar over here, then the public expects us to work together, and it should be. It's nothing else. It's unexcusable if it's not. And I think we can do that. I think we have to sit down more together. I think I like it best in large group with 2 full boards looking at each other. And that's my own personal preference. That's Arlyn, okay? That's just me. I got 4 other board members. I'm only speaking for myself. But I like when the board members look at each other face to face and we have dialogue, because it's like sitting around a dinner table. If you want to decide something, get something settled, you sit around the table and you talk about it and you fix it. And we go forward and we build off of that. And the public feels good about us working together. That's what we need to do. It's best for McFarland, it's best for the community, and it's the right thing to do. And we have other government in this county, and that's our county government too. And they do a lot in the McFarland district too. And so they all come together. I worked on this county highway out here, and that was the county dollars working with McFarland when it changed over. And that's the way it should work. We should be working with public employees, and I'm damn proud of it. And we should be working for the public. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Christine?
So the question was, how should the 2 boards work together?
Yeah.
One thing that I've appreciated since I've started running is how much people have reached out to me to ask me questions and to give some feedback or just to talk through some things. And I've had a number of trustees on the current village board reach out to me, as well as Carolyn Clow, who's running for the board president, reach out and say, hey, I think we should start talking about how to work better and together. And one of the things that has really struck me was in talking all of the ways that we could generate funds and new programming that could cross both. And I was not aware of that. So I'm once again, as I'm learning about this position, I could see lots of opportunities, and I don't know enough if those have been taken up or not. But once again, I feel like those communication channels have been open in multiple ways, and I hope that continues, regardless if I'm on the board or not. I think it's already started.
Okay, thank you.
It certainly isn't a question if the school board and the village board should work together. Yes, we absolutely need to work together. I think the strength of the 2 boards together is certainly better than the strength of each on their own. There are a lot of things that touch both boards, as Arlyn indicated. And by the way, when Arlyn goes third person, he's serious about something. And Arlyn went third person, so good for you. Historically, the village board and school board have always worked together. There are going to be issues where there's disagreement, but everything has always ended up getting worked out in the end. I think one of the most important issues in town, don't ask me exactly how we're going to do it, but I think it's necessary that we explore it, is to work together with the village to attract more commercial development to relieve our taxpayers of some of the burden that they've got. And don't think for a second the board isn't fully cognizant that economically it's very difficult and burdensome for folks to get everything they want, as opposed to getting everything they need. So we need to work together. We vowed moving forward, we're going to meet at least 2 or 3 times annually. Village board, school board, I tend to agree with Arlyn. I like to see both full boards get together in the same room. And we'll see if we can make that happen. But the relationship between the village and the school district has always been extremely strong. I'm a firm believer that a significant percentage of the folks moving to McFarland moved to McFarland because of the school district, and we need to keep it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, is it? Okay. I'm sorry I can't do any more questions, but time is up, and I want to thank all of the candidates and all of the audience and everybody for being here, and I hope you all had at least a good time. I did. And also, as I said, please vote on April 2nd.
All right, I just wanted to quickly jump in, and again, I can't express enough of how appreciative the Communications Technology Department is of you guys taking your time out of your Saturday to attend this event. If you do want to go back, you can rewatch any of the forums on our YouTube channel, or they will be on our McFarlandCableChannel.com. If you have any comments, questions, we do have business cards in the back. Feel free to reach out to us at any point. All right, thank you.